didn't know people were dead ass still racist. I grew up in the Northeast, and no one I've ever known has ever been like that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look at the slideshow I posted the other day. Like, I've heard fucked up jokes or whatever, but the shit they were saying in the comments is like, you're a weirdo, bro. Saying I'm ruining my fucking bloodline? What are you talking about? And some of these people claim to be Christians. I was expecting people to come at me for saying FN, and the complete opposite happened.
Now, before we delve more deeply into this, let's look at his first post that he's referring to, right? So he posted a picture of his wife, okay, and she's a black woman. And the caption on it is like, I will cook for you, clean for you, I won't go out anymore, so and so and so, yada, 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 right? So then he posts a second picture, and the caption on that is wifed FN. Now, we're going to get to the FN momentarily, but let me finish up this thought first, right? So the comments under this were full of white people like, oh, man, you would have had to pay good money for that back in the day, right? Like, basically calling her a slave, right? There were comments saying like, oh, there's cotton in the background, all types of stuff, right? And this is what prompted the white guy who made this post to respond by saying, well, golly gee willikers, I had no idea that racism still existed in 2024, my homie-o. Like, okay, right? But anyway, now that we have taken a look at, the first video, we can get more into this. Now, there's a whole lot to address, but my first thing is just going to be, how did you manage to convince yourself that racism didn't exist in 2024? Like, that's my first thing, because I say this all the time. There's no way that white people live in the same world that I do, and they can sit here and say that racism is not real. But hearing him say this, it's really like white people, they really feel that they can believe something into or out of existence. And I've mentioned this before. Like, I'll mention briefly one time I talked about this. I had gotten into a back and forth with some white guy in real life, right? And he was like, oh, you're so uneducated. I said, baby, I got a master's degree from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. Like, I'm more educated than you, be for real. And he gonna say, I don't believe it. And I was like, you don't have to believe it. Like, what? Like, what does that have to do with reality? You really think that you not believing something is going to change reality, that suddenly my master's degree is going to go poof and you'll be more educated than me? Like, you not believing something has nothing to do with anything. Like, what are you saying, right? Like, huh? But that interaction and so many others has made me realize that white people really think they have this power to, like, believe or disbelieve something into or out of existence. So a lot of them really do manage to convince themselves that racism isn't real and black people are just complaining and perpetual victims and so and so and so. And it's always so interesting to see. Like, somebody needs to study, y'all. But that's why I'm here. Spelunker Flower Tower. We gonna get right into this. Now, I gotta be honest with y'all. I do believe that in order for a black person to marry, date, procreate with white people, they gotta be the type of black person who is the black friend, for lack of a better way to put it. So like, when white people say something racist and you're like, oh yeah, that's racist. They're like, oh golly gee, like, I'm not racist, I have a black friend. And then their black friend is the type of black person who's like, yeah, you can use the N-word, buddy. I wholeheartedly believe that all of these people in these interracial relationships, that's how they are. Because there's no way you're black and you're dating a white person and there's just nothing wrong with your mental. Like, there's no way, okay? But that's just me. Let me be fair, though, and let me not make assumptions. Let me not, okay? Let's pretend that she came across this guy and she really just liked him and they really just hit it off and whatever, right? So let's pretend that, she is a normal black person who acknowledges the issues that we go through and racism and all of this stuff, right? And she shared these things with her spouse. Because when you're in a relationship with someone, you talk about these things. There are serious, deep conversations that go on and that need to be had, especially when you're in a relationship with someone who is of a different background than you. That is especially important. Now, I've never dated interracially, and I never will, but I have dated interethnically. I've dated black men of different backgrounds, and there are important conversations that need to be had, even when, both of us are, we're both black, but we're of different backgrounds. So there's even more important conversations to be had when you're in an interracial relationship, right? Now, best case scenario is that she had these open and honest conversations with this white man, and he just shrugged it off. Now maybe he like entertained her. Oh, Shaniqua, that's so bad. Like, I'm so sorry you feel like that, right? But clearly, even if these conversations were had, he did not actually take them seriously. If he can sit here and post saying that he did not realize that racism still existed in 2024. There's no way that you dating a black woman and you didn't know that racism still exists in 2024. There's just absolutely no way, right? But this is something that I have mentioned in the past. White people dating you or marrying you or having children with you does not mean that they are not racist and that they are not complacent in upholding white supremacy. In fact, there was an experience I had on YouTube years ago, back when I was like first on here, right? That like had me shooketh, right? So this racist white guy commented under my channel, right? And he called me a jogger, okay? Now, for those of you all who don't know, jogger is something that racist white people will call black people in place of nigger. Because if you comment nigger, then most times, most websites will not allow the comment to be posted because that's flagged as a slur, right? But they will say jogger instead because it's a joke about Ahmaud Arbery being killed while he was jogging, right? So this racist white guy commented under my video and called me a jogger. I responded to the dude. I said, oh, well, I need to go for a jog. My big ass need to lose some weight, right? Because one thing about me, look, slurs on the internet don't move me. Like, it's not happening. I know y'all be in y'all bedroom like, nigger, you black baboon bitch, thinking that you really about to hurt somebody's feelings, and it's just not happening, buddy. So I replied with that. I was like, yeah, my big ass need to go for a jog. And I kid you not, this man responded to me and said, no, don't say that. You're beautiful. I'm racist, and even I can tell that. And I was like, what, bro? Like, what? Like, that is crazy. But this goes back to my point. A white person finding you attractive and dating you or having sex with you and ending up having a child with you, because babies come from sex, right? That doesn't mean that they are not racist. That just means that they see that black people are beautiful, because I mean, we are. It's kind of hard to ignore. Anyway, let me get to my next point. So, in his response video, he says, my dog Diggity, I'm from the Northeast. I didn't know things like this existed. And it's always peculiar to me when white people pretend that racism is solely a white Southerner thing or something, because I'm from Michigan. I was born and raised in Detroit, right? And first of all, Howell, Michigan is a sundown town, okay? Everybody who went to Michigan State and who was from Detroit knew that, because we had to drive through Howell to get to East Lansing. Every black person knew that, okay? Every black person knew, don't stop in Howell for gas. Don't stop there after the sun go down. This was common knowledge. Mind you, this was not very long ago. This was in 2014, 2015 that I went to Michigan State, and this was common knowledge, right? I used to live in Belleville, and I saw Confederate flags out there on multiple occasions. Mind you, Belleville is not that far from Detroit. It's like 20 or 25 minutes depending on the traffic, right? So it's not even like, oh, it's some old, like some place with nothing out there. It's a couple rednecks living there. No, Belleville is a regular city, and it's not that far from Detroit, and there's Confederate flags out there. So this white guy talking about, well, my home's Skidley. I don't live down south. That's where all the racism is at. It's just such a huge joke to me as a black person who is from Michigan. Like, come on now, bud. It's funny because white people always do this thing where they attempt to distance themselves from racism and their role in it, right? So he sat there and said, well, homie, I live in the Northeast. Like, clearly implying that racism is like a Southern thing. It's not a thing in the Northeast. But I wonder what those black Northeasterners would say, because I promise you, if we interviewed a number of them, they would disagree with you, because this is the fact, okay? People who actually go through something don't have the luxury of ignoring it and pretending that it does not exist. And that's not uniquely about racism or anything like that. That's just the reality about everything. Somebody who goes through something cannot sit around like, hey, well, like, I'm just going to pretend that this doesn't happen. No, because it actually affects their lives. Only the people who are not affected by this stuff can sit around talking about, I didn't know this still existed. Wow, that must be such a luxury for you to be able to sit around and act like racism doesn't exist in 2024. Like, that sounds like amazing, actually. Then this guy goes on to say, yeah, my homie, I didn't know that racism was really still a thing. Like, I've heard messed up jokes before, but whatever. And that's the thing. You have to realize that, well, no, you realize this. You just playing in my face, clearly, right? But those jokes are not jokes. I've said before, there are certain stuff that I'm just not going to joke about. Like, even when I was a kid, you know, and I used to be on the internet trolling and stuff, there was just certain stuff that I was just not going to say or not going to do, because this is the reality. In order for you to joke about something or troll about something or whatever, you gotta believe that shit a little bit, like in the back of your mind, because certain shit you're just not going to, you know, talk about or make jokes about or downplay if you actually see the severity of it. Like, for example, imagine you see somebody trolling or joking about being a pedophile or something. You're gonna be like, nah, I got my eye on you. Like, because there's no way that you're, you know, like, you're not into that, but you making jokes about that. Now, maybe you haven't acted on it yet, but I'm definitely watching you, buddy. You're on my radar. Because again, if you don't think something like that is, you know, like, funny, then you ain't gonna be cracking no motherfucking jokes about it, bitch. And behind every joke is a little bit of goddamn truth. So you sitting here talking about, yeah, homie, yo, like, I've heard some messed up jokes. Those weren't jokes, baby. Those were not jokes, and you know that. You know that. So this guy, he ends his video by saying, I was expecting people to come at me for saying FN, and the complete opposite happened. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know what FN means, okay? So there were a number of people in his comments under this video saying, you're weird too, because you said FN. And then, you know, some people in the comments explain FN means fuck nigga, which, I mean, it probably does, because, I mean, Glorilla did just make a song called FN, F fuck nigga free, okay? So this is the thing though, right? Under this post and the, you know, the initial post he made with the picture of his wife where he said FN, a number of people commented and asked, what does FN stand for? Giving him a chance to, you know, defend himself and say, oh, that's not what it stands for or whatever, right? And he would just, you know, like, react to each of the comments. You know, on TikTok, there's like a like or love button where if the creator likes it, like, their picture pops up and it says, oh, liked by the creator or whatever, right? So he would just like each comment, you know, with people questioning, what does FN mean? He would never say, oh, it does mean this, or oh, it doesn't, right? So clearly he knows what it means, and, you know, he's trying to be incendiary, right? You know, and this is the thing. A lot of times white people do this sort of racism where they do something, but then they act like they didn't. Oh, I'm not touching you. I'm this close, but I didn't quite do it, right? So that they can play the victim when they get called out on something. So when he gets called out on using a slur or whatever, well, I didn't actually say it. FN actually means, it actually means fruit ninjas or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, they do this all the time. This is what I be saying about these interracial relationships. Something be so off about them. You telling me you're married to a black woman, but you didn't know that racism existed, and you're using FN and yada, 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 so and so and so. Like, I don't think I've ever seen an interracial relationship that was just normal. That it was just two people who just came together and they liked each other, and that was just that. There's always this weird dynamic. Like, there's always something strange going on. Because, like, how can you as a black person be in a relationship with a white person who's talking about, oh, well, golly gee willikers, I didn't know that racism existed. Like, what? And then, yo, I gotta take this a step further, because one day, you know, they may have children. They may end up having a biracial child. Can you imagine how confusing it must be to grow up with a white parent who's talking about, I didn't know that racism was a thing. Like, yo, can y'all just do better, please? Like, can y'all just do better? Because I make all these videos talking about biracials and, you know, the many issues that they have, right? But these issues come from these toxic ass interracial relationships. You gotta look at their parents, because what can you expect to come from a relationship where the white person is talking about they didn't know that racism existed, and clearly the black person is allowing that shit? Because there's no motherfucking way that I will be in a relationship with a white person and they'll be talking about they didn't know racism existed. There's just no way, right? So, like, it's just, oh God, it's just a mess. It's so crazy because I've gotten into so many back and forths on social media, right? Where a white person has said something so dumb about race and racism, and then when I check them about it, they say, well, I have a black spouse and a black child. They always call their biracial child black, right? And that's a whole nother aspect of white supremacy, because you telling me that somebody with a black parent can't be white, but somebody with a white parent can be black. But we're not even going to get into the specifics of that. That's not even what we talking about here, right? So whenever they say something goofy about race and racism, they always say, oh, well, I have a black spouse and a black child, so I'm qualified to speak on this, right? But this goes to show you that you can have as many black spouses and as many biracial children as you want to, and that doesn't automatically mean that you are not racist. Having sex with black people and having biracial kids does not mean that you are not racist. In fact, didn't enslavers do that? Like, white enslavers raped black women and had half black children all the time. So clearly you doing those things is not gonna mean that you're not racist, right? You're gonna actually have to do some self-reflection and some work to unpack that inherent bias within you. It's not enough for you to just be out here fucking black people and having biracial kids. That's not gonna cut it.